Every professional has a unique magic waiting to be discovered. At Finding the Unicorn in You helps you unlock your hidden potential. Thank you for tuning in. Now switching it over to our host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today, I have a really special guest who is a psychotherapist and intuitive healer for the last 30 years. She has a master's in clinical social work from Columbia University. She also uses psychotherapy. She's a psychotherapist in various settings. Her spiritual background includes training at the Edgar Cayce Institute. I hope I said that correctly in New York City and a spiritualist church. She performs readings and healings and spiritual life coaching. I'm very excited to dive deeper into this. So without further ado, welcome Carolyn Coleridge, who is also an LCSW. Hello, Carol.
Yes. Hey, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
impressive background. And I have so many questions already off the get-go. So before I go into all those nitty-gritties, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what led you to do the work that you do today.
Yeah, so I come from a background where I'm pretty spiritual. My father was a minister, my mother was a teacher, chemistry teacher, and I was studying to be a therapist. So I've said this before. And then all of a sudden I just started seeing ghosts at age 28. I was studying at Columbia and up in Harlem, and 106 20th Street. And all of a sudden I just saw ghosts out of the blue. So my mother, who was a chemistry teacher, but used to have visions. And she goes, "Oh, that's just part of our family lineage." And I'm like, okay,
Mm,
this is scary. She says, "Oh, but no, it's not that bad." And she's like, "Well, how are your grades though? What's the real issue?" Relations normalized it. And because of that experience, I started getting into spirituality, healing, into, intuition. I was always very intuitive, but I know what it was. Like I would pick up stuff about people. I would have, good chills or vibes around certain people. Later, I found out I was an empath, very sensitive. And then when I sat with people, I would see their auras. And I was like, why am I seeing people's auras? Just like these colors around them. And it was so clear. And when I studied the auras, I realized I learned about who they were as a soul, not just as a
mm,
personality. So psychotherapy is really about working with a personality. But I was given the gift to work with someone's soul. Like, why are they here? What lifetimes have they had? What's their higher purpose? What's their reason for being? And it helped me to really delve deeper, and people got better quicker if they are
mm.
open to it. So I knew that spirit, that I call it God, source, universe, was really guiding me to do something a little bit more intensive and to be prepared for this time. We're in the Aquarian age. We're going from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age, which is the time of co-creative process, co-creating with the universe. That's why all the churches are breaking down. That's why people are questioning things, systems, banking, all these different things. And people are looking on a soul level. Why are we here? So I feel like the universe set me up for this time period in my life.
I
Yeah.
love that. And I geek out about like the beyond and then like spirits and spirituality and stuff like that. I love all that stuff. I don't share this very often. My friends know. Like I've been seeing like I've had my own ghost stories when I grew up. And it's
Mm,
kind of crazy because my family also kind of talks about it, how we've all seen things like, growing up. And
mhm.
it's insane when like that that kind of like we don't talk about it as often, but when you do and you start opening up about it, a lot of people come up and you're like, oh, I've done this, I've seen that. Or people like you. And I've actually never met someone who does this as like integrated it with their profession. So kudos for you.
Mm. Yeah, it took a lot of strength and a lot of guts because there is, I was nervous being at Columbia, which is so conservative, to say I'm seeing or hearing things like,
Yeah.
okay, you're psychotic. Like, no. But my mother being a chemistry teacher, and she also went to Columbia, so she was really grounded in my mother, I should say, is from South America. So they're more open to spirit there. She grew up Christian,
Mhm.
but she was more grounded in science. So she didn't make it seem like a pathology. She's like, oh no, this is normal. It's part and parcel of who we are. We're souls, we're spirits, and we have all this, we have a combination of both being here. And it helped me give meaning to my life. Like, why did things happen? What's here? What's the purpose? Why are things happening at things? Soul cycles, moon cycles. There's so much to learn when you learn that we're souls, not just personalities. Yeah. And it can really help other people grow because a lot of people are very attuned.
Mhm.
Right now, there's a lot of empaths on the planet. There's a lot of people who are feeling more inner in their energy. They're more about energy than who they are. There's just so much going on right now. And I think that people should be more open to knowing that people are trying to figure out what is the soul, what are we here for? What's the higher purpose? Yeah.
I love that. And then I know you mentioned a little bit about an Aquarium phase, Pisces phase. So does astrology also link into that?
Yeah, it does. It's a great
Okay.
question. I guess I didn't really elaborate on it, but the Piscean age was we just finished it, and that was when the Mayans are pretty famous for 2012,
Yeah.
predicting that is the end of time. So that our solar planet went through a 26,000 year cycle, elliptical, 26,000 year, and that was the Piscean age. That's when you start. You think of a fish, you think of the Christ energy of the fish, and somebody teach me how to fish, and then I'll learn how to do things. But we ended that. So they said it was the end of times. It was the end of times as we know it. That's what I believe. So at 2012 was December 20th, 2012 was the end of the Piscean age, and we began to move into the Aquarian age. And the Aquarian age is the time of, melding energies, melding male female together. Balancing of the male female. It's a time of when we co-create with the universe. That's why people are pushing away from the church, are getting like, what is the universe teaching me? What is universal knowledge? You saw the corruption in some of the churches.
Yeah.
We saw people pushing away, getting into, astrology and other things. So this is a time when we co-create, and look at all the young people creating. I mean, all the YouTubes and, Google and all that other things that started around that time, where people are startups. People want to
Yeah.
create this new religions, new this, new like astrology things. And this is a time for us as souls to realize we're like the creator, like God, like the source, and that we are powerful souls. We're not just these random beings here. And that more we tap into that, more we meditate, we can find out our true purpose, and then we can create what we want. That's why my business name is Conscious Creation. Like, what are we consciously creating? Yeah.
I love that. I love that a lot. So I know you blend in both this and therapy and psychotherapy. So what would like, let's say somebody just has an intake with you, what would that look like? Like, what are some issues that they could be working with you and you can help them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I found that a lot of people came to me around their soul cycles. Now, every 7 years, this is just my belief. I was just listening to a podcast where someone was talking about a different type of like the little cycles, but I go into soul cycles. And so every 7 years, our soul grows. At age 7, kids are not as cute and cuddly. They're more of their personality from the other side. 7 more years, think of 7 year cycles. There's 7 layers of skin, 7 wonders of the earth. Our skin phases 7 days. We transform hair particles, etc. So 7 more years is 14, and that's what high school. 7 more years, if it's like a clock, is
Mm.
21, and that's what adulthood. 7 more years is 28. The clock strikes 12. And it's right before the Saturn return. The Saturn return is a deep time of the soul where all these issues come up that your soul is here to work at. So it's usually 29.5 to 31. So a lot of people seek me out at 30 for therapy at like 29, 28. Now, age 27 is called the lunar return. Lunar meaning moon. And that's like a deep time of your soul. Your moon, what's buried, what's underneath will come up. And it happens at age 27, and then it happens again at 54. So I think it's very interesting just to make it like more public. When you think of like Will Smith, when he was 53, when he hit, he hit the other actor.
Chris Rock, right?
That's who it is.
Yeah.
It's just blanked out. He was 53, and he grew up in a DV household. It's just stuff I read in the press. So anything from his childhood he didn't deal with, he's turning 54 will come up. And then think
Mm.
of Matthew Perry. He died at 54. So it's a deep time of the soul. And you see a lot of people during the time the soul is pushing on you. Also, at age 27, the lunar return is when a lot of the rockers died. Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse. You think of Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Morrison. They all died at 27. Very powerful time as a soul, but very painful. If you're rich and famous and everyone loves you, but you haven't dealt with your issues, it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like everyone loves me, but I love myself. So easy to overdose. This is just my belief. So, and I just saw a lot of people will come in during these times at like 27, 29, like I'm losing my mind. Everything's going wrong. My relationships, my health, my career, my purpose. I don't have any money. And I was like, this is what you're going through, a soul cycle. They're like, oh my God, that is so exactly what I'm working on. And I was like, okay, this is a time to start working with your heart, which is our soul center, as opposed to your mind. What does your heart want? a lot of divorces age 27 through 31, a lot of times because people figure out this is not who I really am. I don't really want you. I just got married because everyone else is getting married or whatever it may be. So it's a deep time to start doing soul searching at the
Yeah.
beginning. And you'll be pushed. You might be at a job, you just leave it. And I was 28 when I started seeing ghosts. I would have been just a normal therapist. And then all of a sudden, here I am, like, speaking to dead ghosts, talking around. I wake up in the middle of the night and they're like nudging me. They're like, you know what? My first lifetime. And I'm like, what is going on? Like I'm doing like, afterlife therapy,
Mhm.
asleep. So it was just interesting. So then later when I started communication with spirits, I was like, oh, okay, this is why it happened at the time. So it's a good time so people come in looking for, like some deep understanding of why they're here, what's their soul mission, what's my purpose, why is everything going wrong, what's my higher calling. That's what I get a lot of people to intake. And I explain to them soul cycles. I explain to them, about that they're here for a reason. Sometimes I do numerology and it shows them exactly what they're here to do. Numerology is a wonderful way to figure out your soul mission, soul cycles, what you're here. And so many people are told, do this job because it pays good money. And
Mhm.
then, but they want to do something else. They're like, no, I'm a writer. Whereas like, no, you're going to medical school. So that kind of thing can happen to people. And then it can make them so sad and depressed. I was lucky. I listened to my soul's calling and I was really able to do that. Yeah.
So the question of like purpose comes a lot, like on a lot, especially with the clients that I work with as well. So what is like, let's say like a story that you maybe can like share about when you help someone kind of like discover their purpose.
Oh wow, there's so many. I have a good one. It's in my book. My book is called Honor Your Spirit, and it was out 10 years, so it's an older book. But I have two good stories. One is an older woman I was working with. She came to me at 56, and again, 7 times 8 is 56, and she said I had a heart attack. And I was like, okay. And she's like, but I don't feel like I did have a heart. I think I had a heart attack. It was an emotional attack. I went to the doctor, says nothing, but they put on not a traditional MI, but they put on a heart monitor, but it seems to be okay. And she just felt called to me. So I was working with her, and then I said, I see a vision of you. And she was a lawyer, and she was actually a judge. And I knew she was doing something with contracts, but and I said, are you a judge? And she goes, yeah, I'm a judge. So I said, I just see you singing. And I see you being an artist. She goes, oh my God, her eyes teared up. She goes, I always wanted to be an artist. I always wanted to sing. I wanted to be like Linda Ronstadt, because I kept hearing, it's so easy to and she's like, how did you know that? I was like, it's in your aura. And she said, but my parents wanted me to go to law school. She was a child of immigrants and Mexican American. And she had to do it. She's the smartest in her family. You have to go. She'll take care of all her siblings. But then again, soul cycles will come up. Her soul came in to sing and do this other stuff. So she ended up, I said, well, my prescription for you is to go to karaoke and to start doing art. She's like, okay. But I did healings on her. She was very sensitive energetically. She could feel the healings. She was always naturally intuitive herself. She says as a joke, she could tell who was honest and who was lying and this and that. So then, yeah, we did a lot of healing, and then she got, better and better. And she goes, Carolyn, guess what? I said, "What?" She said, I sang karaoke and I got like applause. And then I did photography and I was best in show. And I said, that's your true calling. And it was a while I saw her, but she ended up being really good. And in my book, it's called Without Judgment. Just judge,
Mhm.
live a life
That's
without
good.
judgment. Yeah.
I
So,
love that. And
yeah.
it's good because you find people's passion. Feel like a lot of the times they feel that work is everything, work and family, but then they
Mhm.
forget to rediscover that inner joy inside. It
Mhm.
just helped her like rediscover that and find that and really seek out what's bringing her joy. Because if we're not having fun in this world, why are we here? We need to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think it was a lot of pressure coming from, like an immigrant family. Though her parents spoke English, I remember she saying that she used to translate their things for them or read contracts.
Yeah.
And when she read the contracts, it's like it was a surprise at age 7, she became a lawyer, her
Yeah.
parents like you got to pay the rent now, you got to do this. But there's that pressure, my parents were like that too, go to medical school, go to medical school. I was like, I don't want to go to medical school. So there's just, and the parents want their kids to be successful. So yeah, there is like I think people, if you're having a crisis, you gotta clean your heart, heal your heart, and listen to
Yeah,
your heart. That's the soul calling, listening to your heart.
I love that. I love that a lot. So you mentioned you were an author of a book. So what was the name of the book again?
It's called Honor Your Spirit.
Okay.
Yeah, should have brought it. It's like over there. It's like over there.
Honor
And
Your
then it,
Spirit. Mm?
yeah, and that's about my path as an intuitive and a psychotherapist, how I combined it both by listening to the universe. I have another book called Soul Wisdom, which is
Okay.
all my newsletters together. It's a mindful book where you can just open it and just read different information about like short stories about empath or about meditation or about finding purpose. It was from my newsletter, so I put that together. And then I have a little workbook called Honor Your Spirit, and then working with the universe. So how to work with the universe, and basically it tells you about totem animals, which I love, numerology, how to find your purpose. You know, what are the signs you're seeing in the universe over and over repetitively? That's the universe calling to you. That's when people find their purpose, by listening to the universal dialogue, which
Hmm.
is right there. It's right there for us to hear. Whenever we're ready, we tune in.
I love that. And if listeners want to purchase these books, can they get them on Amazon or where can they go?
Absolutely, still on Amazon. Yep,
Okay,
still there.
perfect.
Yeah.
So, and then for listeners, I'll put the links in the show notes. So don't feel like you have to kind of like write all these notes down. You can just click the links if you scroll down. But that's amazing. And what you did here is truly courageous because not only did you see what your talents were and you pursued your like you're with your talents and your dream and you opened up your own practice to be able to help other people. What do you feel was that like that that like that what led you to take the risks on yourself and do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have to honestly, in some ways, I have to give credit to my parents who, even though they thought, what are you doing? They listened to their heart over everything else. They grew up poor and they kept listening to God, listening to God. And that's how they found their purpose. And I think with me too was like listening to my heart. I watch them. So listening to, and what's right, what's right over what's wrong? What would make my soul sing? I worked in corporate America. God, I could not stand it. Well, for example, I worked for as a paralegal and I was like snoring. Then I said, well, maybe I have to get every MBA. And I worked for economics research firm and hate every minute of it. And then while I was working at these jobs, people would always be like, you know what? Me and my husband are gonna get a divorce. And I was like, can we do the marketing plan? Because I don't think I'm asking you about that. And people would just tell me their problems. And every time, all the different places I would go, I'd be at like, the store over the peas. They're like, yeah, I think I'm gonna decide to go to the Olympics. I've always thought that. I'm like, nice to meet you. Can I get my cucumber? It was just random. It's like my aura was vibrating. I could help you find your purpose. And I just felt like trusting. And I remember when I was studying at Columbia to be a therapist, I had this weird experience because I always think the universe will speak to you. So I was walking down the street and I kept seeing ghosts and all this. I was like, well, how can I combine both? They're polar opposites. But then I realized soul is the psychic and then the psyche is the mind. So they're kind of similar. So I was
Mm.
walking down the street and people used to come up to me and say, excuse me, in Manhattan, do you know where 154th Street is? Sure, sure, sure. This. Do you know where downtown is? Chinatown, Upper West Side, da, da, da. And I would give people directions. So that was one weekend, it was 5 people. Next weekend it was 10. Then it was 12. Then it was like 18 people. And it was like hordes of people. My friend were like, this is kind of weird. Like people are coming to you. And I kept saying, universe, why am I here? And people kept coming and asking for directions. And then me and my friend just finally got it. I'm like, I'm helping people find directions in life. After I got the message, never saw people coming to me in hordes again. It was so funny, like to have this dialogue with the universe that would happen. And another thing that happened, which I thought was interesting, is I was like, because I kept asking, and I said, "Oh my God, what am I? I'm so overwhelmed." And I did my master's in like 16 months, which is crazy. And I also had to, like do working and internships and practicums and, the papers. And I was like, I would be, bitching and moaning. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, I gotta, I mean, I've been some way privileged that I was able to do that. I took out a lot of loans. I would always see a blind person.
Mm.
Every time I was complaining, I would see a blind person walking in Manhattan with all those cars and subways and the taxis. God forbid you gotta jump to the sides and it'll hit you. And I was like, if they could get out there and do this and be blind in New York City, God bless them. And I kept hearing walk by faith and not by sight. And that was my message. Every time I saw like maybe like 20 blind people, it was almost weird. I was like, who's setting it up? The other subway, I almost hit them, but my taxi cab, in a diner. And I was just like, okay, so, stop feeling sorry for yourself, get this degree done, and then trust the universe. And I've been always been blessed and protected during that, all those years.
I love that. And you have to pay attention to those things. Like when I worked for nonprofits in corporate America for a long, long time. And I asked myself, like, there has to be something more that I can do. Like, what can I do? And never, ever would have ever said I was going to start my own business and do this. And
Mm.
I'm always going to work for someone else. But a lot of my coworkers, a lot of my staff under me, like a lot of like different people kept asking me, like, you're really good at what you do. Can you help me like rewrite my resume? Can you help me find out if this is the right career for me? Can you help me interview? And all these things that I constantly did. And it took a long time for me to put two and two together. And it's like these people keep coming back to help them in things that have nothing to do with what I'm doing now. And then I'm just like, you know what? I should really pursue this. Obviously, people trust me with this and I'm yielding really good results for them. So let me do it. So you have to listen to what the universe tells you. Like you get the signs are there. It's
Mhm.
whether you want to be intuitive or not to listen and
Mhm.
to pay attention to your calling.
100%. And I have the guts to do it, which you did. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really valuable lesson that you just mentioned there. So thank you for sharing that. That was awesome.
Mhm. Thanks.
So life gets a little crazy sometimes, right? So like even being a business owner, seeing clients, it can be emotionally overwhelming carrying all that for you sometimes. What are some things that help you ground yourself to reset yourself so you can be refreshed and have that good work-life balance?
Yeah, I love the word ground because that's exactly what I teach people as a mindfulness teacher and meditation teacher. I help them learn how to ground into the earth, into the mother, into Gaia, whatever you want to call her, Sophia. I ground and literally get your roots going down into the earth. And on Insight Timer, I have Carolyn Coleridge on Insight Timer. I have a great meditation for free and that you can ground into the earth and then you connect to the divine source or a star, whatever, and then you mix the energy together. It's a whole 20-minute meditation and help your aura field. So what that does is help center you so that if you're grounded in the earth, you kind of realize, why am I here on earth? Grounding also makes us more centered. And it's like a tree when it's grounded, it's like it waves, but it still stays there. The branches represents to me all the different probabilities or possibilities of your life. And then it helps you to get cleansing and clearer into your purpose and to be in the present and in the now. And being in the now really helps you. You're not worrying about the past, which could lead to depression. You're not anticipating the future, which could lead to anxiety. You're just being present, letting things unfold as they may, step by step. And as I say that, I need to do this. Thank you for reminding me to do that. I feel like a little overwhelmed. And using nature also. I love essential oil sprays. I sell those. And I love to glue essential oils. I just love them. I love crystals and rocks. I feel like that helps ground you, holding on to, Mother Earth. And certain rocks have different frequencies, and these frequencies are connected to the frequencies in our aura. That's why we feel called to them. The Native Americans, I spent like a summer on Navajo reservation in, what was it, Tuba City. And that's Arizona, Tuba City. And they loved the earth. And they talked about crystals being stone people. It took them a while to open up. They didn't just, hey, this is stone people. They have to trust. And they're like, that the earth has magic. And that's why in the Navajo, they have the blue, which is considered God the Father, the turquoise, and the red coral, which is Mother Earth. So connecting to the mother and the father and looking at that way. So I always kind of do that. I ground in the earth and say, okay, universe, God, Father, what are my next steps? What am I here to do? What am I here? What's my purpose? Am I on it? Is there something else? So that always helps me grounding. Essential oils, nature is a wonderful healing. Nature has all the elements, fire, air, earth, water. So I love going by the ocean and just feeling that cleansing of the ocean. The breeze giving me messages. Then the sand grounding and the fire is like energizing me. So just being in nature is wonderful and healing. So that's another way that I like help to yeah, recharge, reconsider, revigor invigorate, because we need to recharge regularly. And that also helps our spirit when we use the elements.
I love that. I don't know if you can see, but I do have a Tibetan bell and then as well as like a ringing bell. So I try to ring that every now and then and before I go to meditate and then just really allow the vibrations to like sink in to relax my mind and ground me before I start any activity. And literally my therapist just told me like you need to do it more just because we like you said, we forget sometimes because we get in the groove of things and you're like, why am I so tense? You're like, I haven't done any of my like my grounding techniques. I need to like do that again. So I think it's a good reminder for both of us to kind of do that.
Yeah. Yeah. We're so busy helping other people. It's like, wait a minute, I'm the vessel.
Exactly.
Himself. Yeah.
So this has been a fun conversation. I do want to go and wrap around to the last question, which is the premise of the whole podcast. So what is the most impactful unicorn lesson that you've learned that led you to be the person that you are today?
It's such a deep question. I love it. And we used to have a picture of a unicorn at the house, and they're so magical. Ask me the question again.
So what is the unicorn lesson that has impacted you the most that led you to be the person that you are today?
I think actually I can go so many different ways, but I think it actually is the name of my book, Honoring Your Spirit, Honoring My Spirit. Like, what did my spirit want to do if it wanted to write? I didn't think I was a writer. And then, my book did well. If I wanted to draw with crayons or I wanted to become an intuitive, and then I became a medium. So honor your spirit. And none of this stuff. And then I went to a healer and I connected to an ascended master who's like channeling. And now I have a group on Facebook that has like 48,000 members, though I inherited it, and then this is about ascension, helping people to ascend out of their soul path. So, and going so they don't come back to earth. So they really ascend and do their mission. And this is new to me. I never even knew about it until it came. So my unicorn identity is just like listening to your spirit. And spirit to me, I put this in my book, but S means that it's your spirit comes to you, it's an energy and it's synchronistic and signs. So anything with synchronicity and signs is your spirit speaking to you. Is P, it has your passion, and your passion is your purpose. What's your purpose is what you're passionate about. What's your passion is your purpose. I is intuitive and intelligence. So it's the language of spirit is the intuition. And then intelligence is this universal intelligence so much smarter than me. If I tap into it, whoever created trees or animals or giraffes or, the sun and the universe, I want to connect to that being. So that's the intelligence. R, you have to, what we said before, renew and rejuvenate yourself, smudging, sage, sprays, grounding. The other I is innovative and inventive. The spirit will help you become innovative and inventive. And T, you got to trust, and it's just trustworthy and it's truthful. So that whatever your spirit sends to you, pay attention. That's the whole plan of it. So yeah.
I love that a lot. I've learned so much in this podcast, and I'm sure the listeners have too. If somebody wants to work with you, hire you, or just ask you some questions, how can they do so?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, Conscious Creations in Connecticut, or Conscious Creations in Connecticut at gmail.com. My website is doing some wonky things, but you can still find me on honoryourspiritbook.com. And on Facebook, I have a group, How to Work with the Universe, and Insight Timer. Insight Timer app, I have regular meditations. I have a whole bunch up there for free. So Insight Timer app, it's Carolyn Coleridge, LCSW.
Perfect. Thank you, Carolyn, so much. For listeners, as a reminder, all of these links will be in the show notes. And if you go to my website at rainbowcareercoaching.com, go to the podcast, and under there would be Unicorn Wall of Fame. You'll see Carolyn picture on there in the Unicorn Wall of Fame. If you click on it, they'll have a small blog about kind of everything that she talked about today, along with those links there as well. One final reminder, everybody, every episode comes out every Friday at 7 a.m. Don't forget to subscribe and like the content. And is there any last words that you want to give before we close out today, Carolyn?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for honoring your spirit and having me on the podcast. And keep the energy shining. We need people to support themselves in all the colors of the rainbow. We need everyone here to just love themselves and to support one another. We're in a really weird time, and I think that we really need to just respect each other. So thank you for doing you.
And then just to diddle that, yes, this is a time where we really do need to share as much love and compassion as possible and try to pay it forward one day at a time. Thank you so much, Carolyn. And until next time, everyone, I hope everybody has a wonderful day.